When it comes to the healing journey, there's no just one size fits all. It's going to determine really the lifestyle choices, the habits of each individual. So what works for one person may not work for someone else, and that's okay because we're not all expected just to be the same. We're not identical. We're all unique. I've spoken in the past, or quite heavily, really, about gaming in my life in terms of the addiction that it can be, but also how much of a distraction it is in life. And I think sometimes we need those distractions. That in itself is healing. So it stands to reason then, if something that I know has the tendency to become an addiction at stages of my life, to still have it, why would I do it if it's a detriment to myself? Because it's only a detriment to myself when I can't control it. So I've actually been really good lately because I'm aware, I'm self aware. So I haven't been doing it as much and I'm finding other things. So it's all about balance. It really is. And we don't have much time. Time was always getting lost. I've got a lot of books I got to get through to read. I love reading. And it's like, but it's time consuming to an extent, but then it's not as time consuming as we think. But then we're so visually stimulated by everything. Sometimes it's hard to just reset and find that equilibrium just to relax. So, so we all have various things. I think. I don't think most people just have one thing that helps detox them to an extent. Although perhaps some people have because they just haven't figured it out. So even in my own life, for instance, I love listening to music. Um, I like my favorite TV shows I can watch on repeat. Some people or some therapists consider that a coping mechanism. It's to each their own. It's just it's a piece that I find because I absolutely love it and it just makes me happy. Um, I don't have big group of people around me, so for me personally, it's like it's almost like a social setting in a sense, but it's good. So like I love the Big Bang Theory, for instance. There's 10 or 12 series of that. That means by the time you've got to the end, you haven't seen the beginning for a while. So I don't mind. I can watch this on repeat. I used to do the same with the TV series Friends when I was younger. I loved that, but now I've replaced that with the Big Bang Theory, and people can put it as a coping, like some sort of issue, but I don't see it as an issue at all. I just don't think there's that many shows that are similar to it. That's the problem. If there was other shows, I'd go to them, wouldn't I? So, for instance, I can still watch other shows and other movies. It's fine, but I find sometimes they're just too intense, and I'm not in the mood for something so intense. So I gravitate to things that are a bit more light, and I find they're light, and I enjoy them. So, for instance, I love the Big Bang Theory, but I also absolutely love Seinfeld. I love the character George Costanza and Kramer. They're my favourite. George was always my favourite. I love the way Kramer's just eccentric, but George, what I like about George is he's definitely not perfect. Um, he's very selfish, very narcissistic actually. He would actually throw you under the bus just so he doesn't suffer, just so he can have something. He's really, really selfish, but it's just funny to watch that dynamic because he just wears his heart on his sleeve and just says it how it is. So he just doesn't care. And I've always enjoyed that about him, the fact that he just has this carefree nature and he's funny as hell. So yeah, so I can watch Seinfeld. I find it just therapeutic and relaxing for me because I just think there's nothing like it in all honesty. Got another TV series I like, the '70s Show. Again, it takes you back to the past. For instance, I love the '80s and '90s. I was born in the early '80s, but my high school was the '90s, for instance. Um, and I just love that period of life. I could talk about it a lot. I think there's going to be future generations that also look back at that period and for a good reason, really. It was more people just got along. I think it just people just got on. Not everything was perfect, of course, but when was there ever a time of perfection? But it's the time like of a great transition, I think. And then we took this technological leap, and I'm not sure. But then I just think we started losing our freedoms along the way. There's all these little nuances, but it's kind of like when things were just more simple but fun, and you could sense the energy. It was all about just fun, and it was just great. It is nostalgic. So for instance, there's another side of me. I like collecting things. If I'm not collecting video games, I'm collecting something. So now I've been collecting, rather than buying video games, for instance, I've been investing in physical media because I recognise that it's a lost art form. We are losing it. If people are not noticing now, it's almost like that extinction, and I'm seeing it, and I appreciate it a lot. I appreciate it because there's going to be a day when there's a next generation that have nothing physical, tangible they can hold. I think one way to look at it, I don't want to go too far off because there's a video I really want to show. When you see these futuristic movies, they're very I've said it in another video. They're very streamlined. If you look at it, it's like there's nothing that gives it character. And you think, oh, this looks cool, but it looks cool. But then now look how boring it looks. There's nothing to it. There's no substance. substance was back when we had things, you know, we could give our own like identity to and how and collect and that. It's a really important part, I think. So I've been collecting physical media while I can. And I talk about this a lot with VHS tapes, for instance. Some are more expensive than others. They can range quite wildly, quite expensive for something that is rare. You only notice when you're looking for specific film. But sometimes they can still be affordable if you find it at the right time. But it actually becomes it's interesting how rare. I've done a little list on my phone of some of the VHS tapes I have. One, and I have to go by the UK listings on eBay. I'm not going to do worldwide, but in the UK, for instance, there's one that isn't even available in the UK on eBay right now. I put the name in, it doesn't come up with a listing, so it's zero. And I got that in a bundle, so I got fortunate. It's not one I was looking for. Um, I've got others, you know, some a lot of the '80s films. They're very rare. Maybe four available, six. One's got two. You know, it's just crazy. It just shows how limited it is, and that's what I'm talking about. It's not the price; it's how limited it is. So rather than collect games, I've been collecting things like that, and I actually really like it because I've got this physical um, example. Really, I can't keep buying though because I've got nowhere to put things. So I've reached the tipping point unless I can get another shelf unit. But anyway, don't want to digress. But that times free. So anyone know on my healing journey, spiritual journey, that's angel numbers and repeated numbers and things. Um, but yeah, I think we all have vices, and it's good for us. And it's for me, it's really nice to have that collection where I get the control of my life. That's what it is. I don't like the fact that if I want to watch something, I can't guarantee it's on the streaming services. I'm someone that has to have things simple. I don't like complications. So, for instance, if I want to watch something, I don't want to open 5 apps. I don't want to have to think which app are we going to use today. I'm not sure. Well, I like this show, so I'll stick there. And then you start thinking, I want to watch something. I wonder if it's on another. I can't do that back and forth. It drives me crazy. It really. I don't want to swear, but it annoys the shit out of me. Really, I think we should just have one app that has everything, um, and it's a lot quicker, weirdly enough, for me just to go and get a disc and then just pick a disc up for my collection. I know roughly what I want to watch or the type of film I want to watch, and it'll be on a certain shelf, and then I'll just pick one from that shelf, whatever one I want to watch, and then I put the disc in, and then it just plays. You know, I had an issue recently when my internet was down and I just lost services, and it was like, oh, that's great, isn't it? Now I've got nothing. Um, but yeah, I may have to put in on TikTok. I may have to put this in parts because I have rambled a little bit, and I just want to share this other video though, because I want to make a point in terms of gaming. Like I said, there's positives and negatives to gaming, but I think some people just get too lost in like the heavy metal of it, and they just lose sight. I witness people, and it's like you're not enjoying yourself. You're just forcing yourself. So, for instance, I think Call of Duty is fun in periods, but I think when you make it part of your lifestyle, I think that's not a good place to get. In all honesty, I've been there myself in the past. It wasn't really a good time period. You recognise you're not truly happy. You're just going through the motions, and you feel obligated because it's an annual release. More to life than that. There's a lot more games than that. So the problem really is when you find yourself attached solely to one game, and it's a very hectic game, very unbalanced, overly competitive. It can be exhausting, and then your idea of gaming is just tied to that. You don't realize how much more is out there. There's an awful lot out there. There's so many different genres, um, so many different platforms. It's actually incredible once you start delving in. You know, so yeah, I just think personally, if you just play competitive gaming all the time, you're going to find your mental health deteriorates because it's exhausting. Sometimes it's a nice distraction, of course, but it can also be really catastrophic, I think. So I'm going to share something now, and it's a video that just come up on my YouTube. Now, I already do this slightly in games, but not all the time. This person's talking about walking in games, and I think it's a really important video. Like, I think it's really important because of the level of healing it will give people. Like I said, there's so many different ways we can heal, and it's for each of us depending on our habits and interests and things. So if you're a gamer, this could be a great way um, of distracting yourself. Really, it's like you get to walk in a world that's safe. You know, this in the current um, society, it's not exactly safe to walk anymore, is it? It's ridiculous. But in this game, it's really because the games are beautiful now. Some of them, and I've been doing it slightly in some games where I just find the immersion incredible, and just the views are out of this world. You know, so for instance, Red Dead Redemption 2, I even did a video I think a month or so ago, and I was showing that me on the horse, and I just thought that was cool. It felt cool as I was taking it serious, being the character, just for that little moment. Assassin's Creed, I think it's Origins. I like it's Egypt. Sometimes I'll walk and you just think this is so cool. And I love the game Death Stranding, which is a walking game anyway, but you've got to balance your loads and stuff. You're trying to do deliveries, you know. you're like the courier in a world that's a bit dystopian. It's an incredible game. I've nearly finished it, but because something distracted in my life, I haven't got back to it. So it's like, well, I hate that. I wish I'd just played it all the way through and I didn't have a distraction. But such is life. We have to sometimes prioritize other things. So I'm going to say this video now, and I think hopefully it'll help people see from a different side. Because initially you might think, well, I'm not doing that. It take too long. And I get that. Let's say you've only got an hour for gaming. But no one's saying you've got to walk all the time. But it doesn't mean that running around with a gun in Call of Duty and constantly getting stressed and shouting and going angry is in that for an hour is better time spent than finding some peace in the gaming world. You know, and I think that's what people need to realize is just because you've got short time, don't mean you have to just cram it all in and go high octane and then get stressed to shit. Because you've just literally, that's what sometimes you've got to do. You've got to look at what that does to you, to your mental well-being, even your body. Like, what is it actually doing to you? Because I'm not trying to stick to stereotypes here, but I've seen it myself, and I've been there myself to an extent. But I'm quite self-healing, so I'm always analysing. But you'll find a lot of these people, let's say they've got an hour, they'll play Call of Duty or something else that's competitive. They'll have a Red Bull or something next to them thing, so just ploughing them down and really destroying the body in the process while they're getting stressed to shit. Their mental health's deteriorating, and they're just hotheads. And it's like, if you've only got an hour, you chose to create for your hour of freedom, pretty much, or your free time. You've chose to do that. It doesn't seem very productive or good for you, or those around you. You know, or you can be a bit more relaxed and just chill out in that an hour. Now, I'm not saying you have to do that all the time. I'm just saying it's about balance. Like I like so many different genres. I'm comfortable. I can play racing games. I can play shooting games. I can play RPGs. I can play strategies. I can play older games. You know, I'm happy as long as I've got an idea of what I want to play. I'll just chill out. And sometimes it will be things, but I quite like Fortnite. Now, some people keep mock Fortnite, but I think it's great because it's balanced. If I lose, I just feel it's like either someone was just truly better, or I just didn't get a good. I didn't land very well and got good loot and stuff. But everybody has the same opportunities, and that's what I truly like about it. It's balanced, and it's fair. I don't ever feel that I lost because something was unfair. It was just maybe I got bad luck because I landed in a bad spot or someone was truly better. I can't expect to be the best all the time. But I find it relaxing. I find it far more relaxing because it is like an open world in its sense. So anyway, let's watch this video. It's pretty cool. Oh, I will before I get to it. I don't just take people's videos and don't credit them. I do credit videos. I don't know if I'll be able to get it up on my profile, just to show it because I think it's really important for transparency sometimes. Where the hell did you get to my thing? Should have just done it in the first place. Where did I do a video recently? Oh, anyway, let's say I did this one. I did a recent one. It's a bit different because some of my stuff is gaming related. I'll do my gaming one. Let's just stick to the gaming one. So this is my gaming profile. It's a bit different. I did this video where I was learning about VCRs, for instance, how to maintain and repair learning. So we click on it. I'm not going to play it. And it goes. But if you go down here, go down the bottom. See, I've tagged everybody that I watched the video of. Video credits, and I've said the name of the person, and then it takes you to video. So we just click a random one. We do the top one, for instance. Yeah, we'll just click it. That'll take you straight to the video. How to clean a VCR.
Hi, my name is Mark Takna, and welcome.
So I don't just take people's videos. I'm not like rude. You know, I think it's really important you credit someone if you use any content or use it as a reference tool, or always do the right thing. You know, social etiquette and all that. So I will tag that video in my credits on YouTube. I'm not I mean, I'll probably make a comment in the description if I put it on TikTok, but yeah, I think it's just the right thing to do, you know. So let me just reset this back down because I don't know if it affects the quality of the video. Full screen, baby. Now, it's really good. It's 11 minutes, not that long, but it's well worth listening to. Yeah, I'm not going to interrupt anymore. You just enjoy.
One of the weirdest decisions I find myself making in video games is choosing when to walk instead of running. It's weird because nowadays walking is considered a pretty basic requirement in gaming, yet it also has the potential to completely change how an individual will experience the game. As an individual myself, when I choose to walk, I might end up having the most immersive experience I never thought possible, but even more than that, I find that simply choosing to go for a walk can also benefit my own mental health. But before that, I want to talk about how immersive choosing to walk over running can truly be, and one of the ways I do this is by walking to match the vibe and atmosphere of the world around me. To explain from my perspective, sometimes when I'm running around a city or something smaller like a village or hideout, I'll sometimes become extremely aware of the fact that I am the only person sprinting around, to the point where if I was looking at myself from an outside perspective, I'd be like, that guy has to be a crackhead. Now, there are so many games where this applies, but the first game that comes to my mind is Cyberpunk, and that's because it specifically has an extremely immersive open world with a lot of people that are just walking around, kinda chilling, munching on food, but then there's me who's doing this. And while I love the freedom of being able to move around like this, especially so I can save time, I can't help but sometimes think, man, I must look ridiculous. And because of this thought, I will sometimes make a conscious effort to walk around alongside everyone else just so it feels more real, because realistically, if I was actually in this world, I'd probably be walking around too. Sometimes I'll even end up making quest-giving NPCs look like crackheads, because in some of these games, when I'm required to follow them somewhere, I can control their pace by running and walking, and having a casual conversation while sprinting kinda gives me crackhead vibes. It's just one of those things where walking really fits the atmosphere of what's going on at the time. To go a little bit deeper though, what's even cooler about this particular concept is it doesn't just have to be so you feel more in tune with the world around you. You can also do it so you feel more in tune with the character you are playing as. Role-playing games like Cyberpunk are great for this, because quite literally you're playing a role with your own character. This can be shown in a variety of ways, like dialogue choices or fashion choices, but also walking choices. For example, whenever I play Cyberpunk, I like to think of myself as someone who is quite calm and collected and doesn't make irrational decisions. I also feel like in order to play this role, darting around like a crackhead or approaching someone at high speed doesn't really fit the vibe of calm and collected. So instead, I choose to walk in a way that represents the character I'm playing as. The awesome thing with this though is walking doesn't just have to apply to role-playing games, it can also apply to more narrative-driven games where you play as a particular character. The first games that come to mind in regards to this are the Uncharted series, and in those games you play as Nathan Drake, who is basically a very enthusiastic professional treasure hunter that explores various ancient tombs throughout the game. Now, when you explore those tombs, you can usually just run straight through them to the main objective, and while there is nothing wrong with doing this, I always felt this was kinda strange and it doesn't fit what Nathan Drake would actually do. Because if I was a treasure hunter that enjoyed exploring tombs, I'd probably take my time, be in awe of the tomb, and actually explore the tomb. So for a start, to me it literally just makes sense, but more than that, I found walking to be a great way to add to the feeling of actually being Nathan Drake, and I don't think I will ever stop. So what I just showed you were examples of walking to match the vibe, but what if you wanted to walk in order to change or maybe even better the vibe? Well, there are definitely ways to do this, and the best example I can think of is with boss fights. And when we're talking about boss fights, the all-time goats of making these, the FromSoft games and even Black Myth Wukong, have to be mentioned. Now, in these games, when you encounter a boss, you can just run it straight, balls deep into them and get the fight started. But have you ever taken your time and just walked towards or even around the boss? Kinda like how two badass characters in an anime would right before they throw hands? Well, whatever your answer is, I do this all the time, and it's such a great way to build tension right before the fight starts, almost like you're sizing up the boss right before you engage. And what's even cooler about this is the boss will sometimes also engage in this walk, almost like they're sizing you up too. Black Myth Wukong is probably the best example of this, because I swear the developers put in an active effort to make bosses respond to your character whenever they see you walk. I actually experienced something spectacular in regards to this with the Golden Rhino boss fight, and it basically blew my mind, and hopefully yours too. So in this fight, the Rhino was charging at me from a distance with full speed, but instead of running out of the way like I normally would, I decided to fearlessly walk towards the Rhino, and when I did this, the Rhino stopped charging and walked right up to me, almost as if to say, I've got balls too. And I gotta say, I cannot believe this happened, because it completely changed how the fight felt, almost like it felt more real. Anyway, now for something maybe a bit less real, how about those moments when you walk just so you can take in the view? Kinda like how you would in real life, except if I'm being honest, some of the views you see in video games are arguably better than what you would ever see in real life. But either way, whether it's real or not, I always found it felt wrong that if I was presented with a gorgeous view, I would just run past it without taking it in at all. To add to this, I also think to myself, someone out there actually put in the effort to design something so wonderful, so at the very least I could appreciate it. Now, there are countless games where the views are amazing. I think both of the Horizon games, Red Dead Redemption 2, and even a linear game like Plague Tale are some of the great quick examples I can think of, but the one that stuck out for me recently and actually helped the idea for this video was Elden Ring's DLC. The reason it stood out was because I was presented throughout the game basically non-stop with gorgeous views and color schemes at every instance where a new area or even small dungeon was being introduced. I eventually got into this habit of purposefully walking in or out of the new area being presented just so I could make it feel more epic and take it all in. And just to give you an idea, right now I'm going to show you the difference between me entering a dungeon and taking it in versus me not taking it in at all. Hopefully you feel the point I'm trying to make, because otherwise I'm gonna look a bit stupid, but the way it feels for me is if I didn't take it in, I wouldn't be able to acknowledge just how massive this dungeon is, and being able to see how grand it is changes how it feels as I continue to explore it. Either way though, these moments I'm talking about are exactly why I have my camera tilted in a certain direction and my thumb lightly pushing on the analog stick. I won't be the first person to say this, but I have my sad days and sometimes my anxious days too, and one of the things that I have found that really helps with these days is just chucking on some headphones, opening up a game, usually open world, and simply going for a walk. It's honestly kind of therapeutic, and I swear some games are just made for this. One of those is The Witcher 3, and I swear there is something seriously special about walking around in that game. I think it's one of those games where the combination of atmospheric music and really good environmental sound effects all comes together to completely match the vibe of whatever is going on around you in the game. It feels so immersive to the point where you can imagine yourself as Geralt and completely forget the real world around you. Hopefully I don't sound weird for saying this, but I'm actually at the point in that game where before I go for that walk, I will already have picked out my favorite areas to walk around in. I will even purposefully meditate so that it changes the time and weather within the game, almost so it suits the mood that I'm in. Now, in regards to this, my personal go-to, which might sound depressing, is pitch black nighttime with a shitload of rain, maybe even a storm, but the thing is, I don't find it depressing. I actually find it incredibly relaxing. It's sort of like the nostalgic moments you get where you lie in bed listening to the rain at night. What I can definitely say though is because I find it so relaxing, it gives me the opportunity to just chill out, but it also lets me internalize my own thoughts, where if I didn't have games like The Witcher to walk around in, I might not have the opportunity to do so. Hopefully I'm not alone in doing this kind of stuff, but if I am and you're even slightly considering it, I highly recommend it. Taking a break from the deep and more emotional stuff, going for these long walks obviously doesn't just have to be for something like that. It could also be for something far more simple like walking from point A to B without fast traveling because you just want a more immersive experience. This is something I have also found myself doing for years, but first I gotta say, I am not a psychopath that will walk from one end of the map to the other for the sake of immersion, because for one, fuck that, it's too far, and two, I love being able to save time by sprinting, gliding, or even driving. And honestly, in games like Red Dead Redemption 2 and Cyberpunk, you still get that same immersive feeling while riding a horse or driving a car anyway. But for some strange reason, I will still only choose that option if I have an extremely long distance to go, otherwise I'm completely fine mixing it up with a bit of running and walking. And besides, if you do decide to take your time and walk, you'll probably come across a lot of content you never would have if you boosted on by or even fast traveled. This is kinda weird, but again, if you're like me, you'll even start to notice really specific things like how detailed the walking animations are for your characters. For example, how cool is it that in Ghost of Tsushima, Jin puts his hand out to touch the grass? I also noticed Geralt has quite the swaggy walk with how he moves that shoulder. I love this kind of stuff because it feels so real, and again, I don't know if I would have noticed this stuff without walking. So if you've made it this far, I think we can all agree just how amazing walking in games actually is. But have you ever considered how even more amazing it will be in the future? My brother and best friend actually gave me the idea for this, and he was like, imagine what it would be like to walk around in something like the movie Ready Player One. And I swear I nearly busted an orange thinking about it, because that would have kind of been a dream come true. It also made me realize that walking in games is sort of only a modern thing, because it clearly isn't just about the walking, it's also about the music, the sound effects, and even the graphics, and these are all things that get better as gaming gets better over time. And now that I think about it, I don't really think I've walked around that much in games back in the PS2 days, but maybe that's also because I never felt the need to decompress as a child compared to me now, a full-fledged dad. It's also funny because I would never think this much about walking in real life, but I guess that just shows how much of a gamer nerd I truly am. But also how important being able to freely walk in video games actually is. So that's it, thank you for walking and talking with me, have a good one, and I hope this video made you go, yeah!
Yeah, so I liked it.
Tired
I
of
was
big
involved.
walkie bags.
Jesus Christ. Yeah. Oh, I'm already liking it. I was going to say, oh no, that's not that one. That's just, that's what I hate about YouTube, when it's distracted. I hate the way it transitions over to another video, and then you lose the opportunity to like the previous one. You know, it's ridiculous. They should give you a prompt to say like this before you moves over, because it's just ridiculous. You could watch 5 videos and you only end up liking the last one. I like these videos so much, I'm going to subscribe. Yeah, anyone knows me knows I'm very picky with subscribing and following things. I don't just do it for nothing. But I thought that was incredibly healing. I think very well presented and great video. But yeah, exactly like I said. You know, it's unique to all of us how we want to experience things. But I've already been doing that in some games, but not to too much deeper an extent. But it's going to make me think about it a little bit more, I think, which is great. Because games should be relaxing. I do it in sort of Hogwarts Legacy. I love doing that, and I think a lot of people do. I don't think there's any person that would just run around like a headless chicken constantly. I think sometimes it's just cool to walk around actual Hogwarts and even the surrounding areas. It's just, you just feel you're part of the Harry Potter world. I think, yeah, that's like a little dream for a lot of people, isn't it? So great games can literally take you to different places, but I think for the most part it's about not feeling like you've got to exhaust yourself with it though. Just enjoy the process. You don't have to just keep playing everything that's freaking high intensity, because that actually gets exhausting. Doesn't mean you can't do those things, because there's always a time and a place, you know. In the same way, if you went to the arcade, for instance, you've got the guns and all sorts of stuff, you know. You don't just go to the arcade to go and chill out and do something that's relaxing. You go to use like the penny machines and stuff. You might play whack-a-mole and just start getting mental. So it's like ways to vent, I think, and express ourselves. And sometimes it's going to be high intensity games, but I think sometimes there's some incredibly relaxing games. One of which is Tiny Glade. I don't know if people have heard of that one. It's like a little city builder one, but I just see a lot of women, younger women, playing that game on TikTok, for instance. And I was like, oh, that looks nice. I don't play it a lot, but when you do, you're just chilling out. So they call it cozy gaming. So if anyone's interested, so there's so many different aspects. And I think maybe some of those that just play those very relaxing, easy to play cozy games, if they see something like this walking situation, they may very well find themselves playing games that are a little bit more complicated. But because of the walking animations and things, they could end up playing them just to chill out. And I think a lot of people perhaps would. And like I said, he didn't mention Assassin's Creed Origins, but I would definitely recommend Assassin's Creed Origins, because you get to go ancient Egypt and the views are incredible. And a lot of them in the Assassin's Creed world, of course. But yeah, hopefully that's been some help to people.